Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Dawson, and today we're going to talk about what your rabbit should eat. So my last video, I went and talked about Ollie and some of the teeth problems that he's had. And so I figured this was a good opportunity to go in and talk about what should rabbits actually be eating, what do my rabbits eat, and all of those things. So without further ado, let's get started. This is take 2 because I went to go edit my last footage and there was none. So there was no audio. So that sucked. So there's 3 main sources of food that rabbits will get. The first is pellets, and this is probably the one that most rabbits are getting the most calories from. So most rabbits in the US are probably getting majority pellets. Maybe not all, but it probably is not the way that it should be. So rabbits should theoretically be getting a very small amount or number of pellets instead of a larger amount. The second group is fresh vegetables and some fruits. So these can be super good, and we'll talk about those in the next video. And I have a dedicated video just for that is coming up here pretty quick. And then the third is hay. So today's video is primarily about hay, and it may seem like a little bit of a boring subject, but if you've ever gone to go shopping for hay, you'll find that there's a lot of options. And so today we're going to talk about all the different types of hay, what their purposes are, and what you really need to know in order to make the best decisions for your bunnies. What is hay exactly? Well, hay is just dried grass. And it can be many forms of grass, and that's not super important at this point. However, your rabbit, if it was out in the wild, would be eating a majority of fresh or dried grass. That is going to be the majority of its diet in the wild. And it has always been that way, and it probably always will be that way. When your rabbit is out in the wild and is eating lots and lots of grass, it's usually fresh, at least during the summer months. So if you're like me, there's not a lot of fresh grass this time of year because everything is covered in, a foot of snow. So one option instead of hay is actually feeding your rabbits fresh grass clippings. And they can eat a lot of fresh grass, and it's not going to be bad for them. I would caution you if they've been eating mostly dry foods. If you're going to switch them to a fresh diet like fresh grass, be very cautious with giving them too much all at once because it could possibly cause them to have diarrhea. Grass clippings are great, especially if you're going to go out and make sure they don't have any herbicides, no pesticides on them, or one option would be to grow them in your house. It can be a really good way to give your rabbit some fresh food every single day. So now that we know that grass is good for rabbits, they eat the majority of it, hay is kind of our next best option, especially when you're here in Minnesota in the middle of the winter and you can't get fresh grass very frequently. So the types of grass hay that I really like to use are Timothy hay, oat hay, orchard grass hay, meadow hay. All of those are really good types of hay. There's a few others as well, but those are the ones that you're most likely going to find when you go out and look for hay to buy. Now, the next type of hay is alfalfa, and we'll get into a little more detail about alfalfa, but which of these hays should you feed? Well, the answer is any and or all of them. So each of these hays has a little bit different way that they look, and yes, their nutritional components are going to be slightly different. However, practically speaking, there's going to be no real health benefit to one over the other than it gives your rabbit something else to eat, and they get to taste lots of different things and get lots of different textures. Now, Timothy hay is probably the most common type of hay, and this is probably the one that my rabbits get the most of. We can buy a 50-pound box of hay from Oxbow, and Oxbow is a company that produces lots of small pocket pet foods and toys and treats and all of those things, and they're a good company to work with. They've got lots of good products. This is not sponsored by them. I just am really a fan of their products. But anyway, that's what my rabbits typically get. They get mostly Timothy hay. The next type is orchard grass hay, and orchard grass hay is usually a little less stemmy and a little bit more, how shall we say it, the blades are a little bit thicker, wider, and it's going to be a lot more leafy than something like Timothy hay. Also a very good hay, and it tends to maybe be a little bit sweeter than Timothy. Now, meadowgrass hay is a little bit different because it can be variable depending on where it came from. But meadowgrass hay is a term that essentially denotes that it came from some group of wild grasses. Oftentimes it's a little bit more coarse. There's usually a little bit more brown or yellow hay and a little bit less green hay. And that's just because it has usually some dead or older hay at the bottom when they go to cut it. Not bad. This is not a bad hay by any means. It's just a little bit less nutritious, which is okay. And usually it's a little more stemmy or a little more of a rough hay. Now the next type is oat and or wheat and or barley hay. These kind of all will go together. They're all very good hays, and I typically will say that, and typically they will not have any seed heads on them. So if you go to the store and you buy oats, you will not find oats on your hay typically. And the reason for this is that once the oat plant has matured to the point where it can produce seeds, the stem and stalk starts to die. And all of those nutrients end up going into the seed. So actually oat, barley, and wheat will end up being made into straw, in most times at least, in the farming community. But if you cut them early enough, it can still be very nutritious. Usually it is still a very stemmy type hay though, and that can be good. It can be really good for your rabbit's teeth, especially if they love the flavor. Now the next type of hay that I wanted to talk about is alfalfa. And the reason that I'm talking about alfalfa a little bit separately from all of the rest of them is that it's not actually a grass. So all of the other things, including oats, barley, wheat, they're all a type of grass. And they typically have a very similar nutrient profile when you start thinking about, what's in the stalk, what's in the seed heads. They can vary definitely, but a lot of times they're very similar. Now, alfalfa is actually a legume. So a legume is something like a bean or a pea or something along those lines. And a lot of times they're a lot more leafy, and they actually have a true leaf versus a grass blade. And often these leaves are very, very high in protein. And as a whole, alfalfa hay tends to be extremely high in calcium. Now this can cause several different problems. In normal healthy rabbits that are designed to eat very rough hay, they do great on that. They thrive on that. In a healthy rabbit with healthy digestive system, they're going to be able to eat enough hay to maintain their body condition where it is. And if you go take a healthy rabbit and you start feeding them lots and lots of alfalfa, you're going to end up with a problem, and that's obesity. Because it's so high in protein that they're often going to just be loaded up with calories that they're not used to getting and that their body is not designed to take in, and they'll end up becoming overweight and obese, which comes with its own problems. The other thing is that because it's not nearly as stemmy as a lot of these other hays, you can end up with some teeth issues. And then the last thing is that the higher amount of calcium that they're going to be intaking, this is going to lead to a higher output of calcium, and that goes through the urine. If you want to learn about sludgy bladders and calcium intake, take a look at that video up in the top corner, and there's lots of information there as well. So where should you buy your hay? We know that you're going to want some sort of grass hay for the most part, unless your rabbit is growing or is underweight and your vet says, hey, you really need to feed more alfalfa. You're going to buy mostly grass hay with those two exceptions. But where do you find it? Where's the best place? Well, like I said, you can buy it online. Chewy, Amazon, take your pick. You can find hay just about anywhere. I really like Oxbow because you can buy a 50-pound box of hay that has been sorted through for any weeds, any contaminants, anything like that. I've never been disappointed with their hay products. The other option is to go out and buy one from a farm or buy several bales from a farm. I will caution you though that make sure that you're getting just straight grass hay, that it doesn't have any clover, any alfalfa mixed in, and that you're looking closely. Is there a lot of weeds in it? Because some weeds can actually hurt or kill your rabbit if they're mixed in with their normal hay. So how much hay should your rabbit be eating every single day? Well, the answer is a lot, especially if it's hay. your rabbit should be eating about their body size in the amount of hay that you give them to consume. And they can eat a ton of hay. Without a lot of problems, they just can keep chowing it down and can produce energy. And really, their whole digestive tract has been designed in such a way that they're able to eat this very rough material, that they're able to take hay that is otherwise not digestible by you, me, dogs, cats. They can't digest hay, but a rabbit can. And their whole digestive tract is set up to do that, which is really, really cool. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you wouldn't mind, like and subscribe, and if you have more questions about hay or rabbit food, make sure you leave a comment down below. The next video is going to be about fresh fruits and vegetables in rabbits and what you should and what you shouldn't be feeding them. So thank you guys so much for all your love and support. I appreciate the comments, every single one of them, and I'll see you guys in the next video.